Alright, HTC One M8. This is going to be an honest review of this brand new, sleek, slick, unibody and metal phone from HTC. It is April 2014. We're going to take a look at the Google M8 edition of this phone, compare it to some of the other phones that are out there on the market right now, like the S5 or the iPhone 5S. And if you're familiar with my honest reviews, you'll know I don't pull any punches. I give you my likes, my dislikes, and how this phone sort of feels, looks, and responds in your hand. It's all about user experience. It's not about specs, it's not about pixels, it's not about fanboy things and geek terms that nobody really cares about. So stay tuned for an honest look at this new phone. Okay, so first off, this phone is amazing. And when I say amazing, what am I talking about? Well, first of all, I'm talking about the design. This aluminum construction is probably the nicest Android phone out there right now. This thing is solid. It doesn't creak like a Samsung. It doesn't flex. It's not made of plastic. The aluminum is solid. The aluminum is smooth. It just feels wonderful to hold on to. You have a nice sort of embossed HTC logo here. Totally impressive sort of design with the plastic inlays for their antennas. Camera layout, you have two cameras here on the back, the primary lens, secondary lens, dual LED flash. Just a stunning phone, in my opinion. The bezels are fairly big on this phone, you can see here, but the reason for that is there's dual stereo speakers. And what I really like about these dual stereo speakers is that this actually projects the sound forward. And so the awesome thing about that is if you have the phone in your hand, like this, right, or if it's laying down flat on a table, because the speaker isn't on the bottom, like an iPhone, or on the back, like a Galaxy, the sound actually comes out of these right into your ears. And so it is just a pleasure to hear music or ringtones or any audio from this phone having these dual stereo speakers up front. Videos, awesome, totally awesome sound. They've done a really great job in keeping this design from the M7. The other thing that jumps right out at you about this phone is the screen. The screen is just beautiful. It is probably the most perfect, awesome screen I have seen on a cell phone yet to date. The screen on this phone is sharp. The colors are accurate. The colors are just vibrant and they pop from the screen. They're not oversaturated like a Galaxy. They're not sort of muted like a Nexus 5. They're just the right color tones, the right color vibrance, the right color saturation. It is fantastic. It's a 5-inch display. They've made it bigger than the previous M7. The M7 had a 1920 by 1080 pixel count, which is the same as this, but it was a 4.7-inch screen. And so the 5-inch display on the M8, while it is bigger, retains those same awesome characteristics of the M7. High pixel count, great sharpness. Being a bigger phone, however, makes it a little bit harder to reach those corners, right? So my hands here, I can't really reach everything. So that's a little bit troublesome. The other thing about it being a bigger phone is that it weighs more, and this slippery aluminum back makes it sort of easy to slide out of your hand. So you'd probably want to grab a case for this phone, even though that sort of ruins the aesthetic, and I personally don't use cases. The fact that it's kind of a bit bigger than the M7, and it's slippery, I think this is going to come out of a lot of people's hands. So other great things about the hardware, well, HTC has decided to add a micro SD slot to this phone now. A lot of people were complaining about the lack of expandable storage, so they have added that there. They've improved the battery life supposedly on this phone. We're going to do a rundown battery test here in the next few minutes. It is still a non-user replaceable removable battery, which you have to think about that in the long run. If you're going to have this phone for 2 years and you like to use it a lot every day, you may want to consider something else that you can replace the battery. They've kept the same 4 ultra-pixel camera here. They've added a dual LED flash, which is nice, and they've added a secondary lens, which allows for selective focusing within the camera software. So this is a little bit of a gitchy sort of, I don't know if I like this. I would have preferred them to increase the pixels and resolution on this camera rather than leave it the same. And they've actually done something that, in my opinion, is a mistake. They've taken out the optical image stabilization. And so for me, that's sort of a bummer. I would have rather them upgraded the camera rather than actually detract from it. So how is the camera quality on this phone? Well, for available indoor lights, the 4 ultra-pixel camera does actually pretty well. I'm going to launch the app here. I'll go just take a little quick pic of this lamp next to me. Bring the phone back over here and give you guys an idea. So, detail-wise, indoor available light, it's good. If I had to put this up next to an iPhone 5S, I bet it would be, the 5S would give it a run for its money. And, you know, against another phone like a Samsung Galaxy S5, I think the HTC One M8 will probably do better than the S5. I have yet to compare that directly. That'll be in another video of mine. But I took a couple shots indoors here with the S5 and with the HTC One M8. And the One M8 just gives you a little bit more detail in the out of focus areas and a little bit more detail in your subject areas with available indoor light. Now take it outside and the HTC One M8 as well as the S5 are a lot more close in terms of what the quality of the image looks like. So probably a better camera for indoor available light on the HTC One M8 compared to some of the other phones that are out there right now. But if you're interested in a phone that's dedicated for taking photos, the iPhone 5S is probably going to be your best bet for an all-around camera. The other great thing that they've done with the camera is this front-facing camera actually has a wider angle lens now, and so you can include a lot more detail, or not detail, but area in your selfies, and so this lens here is wider than you'd see on a lot of the other cameras that are out there on the smartphone world right now. They've also made this a 5-megapixel front-facing camera, which allows for full 1080p video recording. They've also decided to move the power button now. So the power button is now on the right side of the phone. It used to be on the left side of the phone. It makes it much easier to reach up and grab that with your index finger, rather than before you kind of had to really shift and strain, and your other hand or your other fingers would end up tweaking the volume here as you reached over. So now if you use your phone in your left hand like I do, it's much, much easier to reach that power button. Another feature that's nice to talk about on this phone, primarily because this is the Google Play edition, is the fact that this is Android, stock vanilla Android software. And for me, that is a huge selling point. I much prefer stock Android over skins like TouchWiz and like Sense. Now, when you think about Sense on the M7 or the current version of Sense on the M8, Sense in general is pretty out of the way. Sense is a lighter version of Android skin than you'd see on things like a Galaxy or like a Sony. And Sense is, again, I'm not going to comment too much on Sense because this phone doesn't run Sense, but if you pick up a phone with Sense, you'll notice that it definitely looks different than the M8 with Google Play on it. So I know that this phone in my hand is running the current version of Google Android software. It's running 4.4.2, which is good. It will receive updates from Google directly, which is nice. And being that it is a Google Play Edition phone, it is unlocked contract-free direct from Google at a whopping price tag of $699. So keep that in mind when you're looking to purchase a phone. So what are my final thoughts on this phone? Well, you know, I think all around this is an excellent device. I think HTC had a real winner with their M7, and so they've decided to keep the design very similar to that with this M8, which to me is a little bit of a disappointment. Like, I prefer to see new designs and new things come out, and HTC traditionally has been great with making things new and different, and this is sort of the first time they've decided to keep the same layout, same shape, same idea behind the M7 in a next generation phone with the M8. And so if you're coming from an M7, I really don't think this is a worthy upgrade. I think you've gotten a lot of the same features with the M7 that you have here with the M8. They really haven't added a whole lot. I think that if you're new to the smartphone world, or if you're coming from an iPhone specifically and you value industrial design and you want to try Android, this is a real winner here. This phone, well, Android in general, plus this phone can do a lot more than the iPhone can do. And it is a much bigger screen than the iPhone offers, and it's a much, I would call it, better screen because of the size than the iPhone has. But you know, that's all up to the individual user and what they value in their smartphone. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Don't forget to check out everything else I have on YouTube, and rate, comment, and subscribe. Thanks.